Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome about number 138 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, writer, actor, and director, Kyle. I have not yet begun to defile myself fine.
No, I'm your Huckleberry. Also, I think I need to sue somebody because Sam Jackson basically told the story of how I met Heather in The Hateful Eight. We were out in the snow and she was begging for a blanket.
I think you've got something there, though.
Do you?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm taking Quentin to court.
Yep, take Quentin to court. Second, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel. I'll be double dog damned. Rowold.
You skin that smoke wagon and we'll see what happens.
Skin that smoke wagon.
Yeah, I had to I had to look it up to know what the exact quote was. I loved it in the movie, but it said the article I landed on said 5 Tombstone quotes you shouldn't recite in a men's locker room.
Gabe, I want you to look that up, and I want you to have it for overall. All right.
Well, look what up? All the 5 quotes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
All right. Third, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Inc. Studios, Andrew. You gonna do something or just stand there and bleed? Zumwalt.
What charms this bit's gotta make a man brave a blizzard and kill in cold blood? I'm sure I don't know.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom. That door's a whore haggis.
Now, Mike, I'd like to work out a signal system of communication. When I elbow you real hard in the face, that means shut up. Be good?
We good.
Be good.
We good. All right. Both of these movies, I mean, I believe most of us on this panel love Westerns, and there are plenty of Westerns out there. Now, we try to stick with the good Westerns. But here, I believe I saw one of these movies in the theater 8 times, and I would have gone back again, but they took it out of the theater. And the other one, I enjoyed it a lot more this time around because it is not on my top 3, 4, 5 list of favorite films by this director. So I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. So
why are you speaking in code? Why are you speaking in code? Which one did you see 8 times?
Yeah, because I really want to make a joke about it, but I know it's the wrong joke.
Tombstone.
Yeah. Tombstone 8 times? Okay.
Because I was going to say,
it'd be great if you saw it.
To watch.
Oh yeah, that came out That came out our junior year of high school, I think. And holy cow, we went to the theater and saw that a
I think I was graduated from from college already.
Oh yeah,
I feel old.
I forgot how old you are.
I'm old. I remember the real Old West.
The real.
I was in junior high, dickhead.
All right.
I wasn't junior high.
Let's poke the monkey, find out what we're discussing.
Ladies and gentlemen, lethal lawmen and law-breaking louts, welcome to the main event. Tonight, two bloody tales do battle on the frontier. Which will end up face down in the dirt, and which will live to see another sunset. In the first corner, from 1993, written by Kevin Jarre, directed by George P. Cosmato, starring Bill Paxton, Val Kilmer, and Kurt Russell. Tombstone! In the second corner, from 2015, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, starring Samuel L. Jackson, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Kurt Russell. The Hateful Eight!
Everyone ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's hit the trail. First round, writing.
Oh, sorry, I thought we liked some Western music.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, actually, I would like that. I would like it if you did that the entire time that I was speaking at a low volume. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So, yeah.
Bonanza.
Okay, I stand corrected. We need a whip crack.
Little
That
Joe,
might
you
have been a
get
little
out
hot.
there and tell Haas. Oh, man. We're off the fucking rails already.
Immediately. We haven't even really started the first category.
Who's in charge of this category?
Gabe.
I am.
You're fucking it up. Let's go.
Put your foot down, Gabe.
I thought I might like some Western music underneath my soliloquy, but I think I was wrong. I don't want that. So
Come on, two-horse Gabe. Grab those reins.
oh, okay.
Oh, two-horse Gabe.
All right, we've got two pretty well-written Westerns on our hands here. And I think Tombstone, Mike, which you saw 8 times or more, I think it's a highly quotable movie. I think there are a lot of quotes from Tombstone that people still remember today and still use today, and people understand the references to it. And so I think, to a certain degree, that's an indication of a well-written film. But I think they also managed to create, it's relatively historically accurate, which is also interesting and fun. And they also managed to create characters that you care about, and you care about what happens to them. And I have to admit, I got emotional at a couple times in Tombstone because of it. Now, you were talking about a certain director and your favorite films by this certain director, and that director would be Quentin Tarantino, and he was also the writer for The Hateful Eight. I personally didn't feel like it was his best work. I didn't feel like the dialogue had the same zip to it. I didn't feel like it was as quotable as other Quentin Tarantino films. And I didn't feel like the characters were really all that interesting or that I cared about. And, that might be part of it. You guys may argue that, okay, well, they're all supposed to be really kind of reprehensible. And what happens when you put all these awful people together in a room and they're stuck there, this is what you get. But I also feel like there should have been certain characters that we cared about, that we wanted to kind of succeed, or we cared about when something happened to them. I feel like, what was his name? Obi? Was that the character's name?
Yeah, Obi, the stagecoach driver. The
stagecoach driver. I felt like he ended up being kind of a throwaway character, and it was disappointing because he was a character I was kind of starting to like. He was kind of like underrated, and then he started to be kind of interesting, where he went out there and he came back in and he's freezing to death, and I'm not ever fucking going out there again or whatever, and then, but then he served a purpose to a certain degree, but I also felt like they just kind of wasted that character. So, in my personal opinion, this is Hateful Eight is not Quentin Tarantino's best work. But I'd like to hear what you guys think about the writing of these.
Yeah, the writing in both movies is pretty solid overall. Quentin Tarantino, I think, is a fantastic writer. I'll talk a little bit later, I'm sure, about some issues with the execution of things. But the story and the plot, the setup, and I had seen this movie in the theater, but I haven't seen it since then. I kind of totally forgot it turns into sort of a murder mystery at the end. Takes like a real tonal shift. But there's a lot of suspense and a lot of tension. He's very good at writing that and putting these people together. The characters are pretty much all interesting. There's enough about them not known that make them, potentially dangerous. Everything is believable in that way. Some things are not, so believable, but again, I think some of that is execution and maybe not necessarily the writing. Tombstone, very well written movie, with the exception of some of the things that happen at the end that I think are very tonally different than the rest of the movie and really started to weigh on me. It's one of those movies that ends 3 or 4 times. You're like, oh, that's the end. This is a good place to end it. Nope. Okay, so they're still going. This is a good place to end it. Nope. Okay, so that gets really tedious after a while, especially when a movie is long in the way Tombstone is. Not saying that it's long compared to the Hateful Eight, which is very, very long. But the Hateful Eight, if it would have stayed true to what it started out as, I would have gladly watched that movie for 4 hours, 5 hours. Would have loved it. I have some problems with the tone it takes in places and things that I didn't like about that movie, but we'll get to that. And I don't necessarily think that that is all due to the writing.
No, but I do. I mean, so this is Tarantino's longest film, and it really feels like his longest film. And I know that this was written as he started this as a sequel to Django Unchained, and then it didn't really quite fit the Django character, and so he kind of broke it off and made it its own independent story. And Django Unchained kind of had that same thing too, where it just kind of kept going and going and going, and there's just, I think, probably too much lingering, and I feel like a lot of that is probably some of the script stuff that is just, there's I don't know, maybe it's more the editing stuff. I don't know. My biggest thing with Hateful Eight, it was just really long. And so I don't know, it's kind of hard to separate the difference between the script and the director when it's the same guy doing it. So
yeah,
I think,
no, you're right.
But the two, I see, and I feel like the Tombstone script is really tight. And it keeps things moving. I don't really feel like it ends multiple times at the end. I feel like there's, I mean, I guess I know what you're meaning, where that, you know, they get Curly Bill, and then they got to get the cowboys, and then he's got to go back and get her. But
yeah, my problem is they literally do the same montage like 3 times.
Yeah, of
them riding across the plains, firing guns at nobody, and I'm like, okay, this is getting a bit silly.
I do think the Hateful Eight story is really great. And The Tombstone story is pretty good too. It's funny that the Tombstone script is quotable in little tiny bits, and the Hateful Eight, if you really want to quote Hateful Eight, then you have to like memorize a paragraph, because that's just the way Tarantino is. His quotes are lengthy. I used the one good quote at the beginning of the show that's nice and concise, and that was still like 2 sentences. So
it's very verbose.
It is verbose. He is QT.
So Kyle, I don't know if you ripped my brain out or I ripped yours out, one or the other, because the Hateful Eight. First of all, I enjoyed the Hateful Eight quite a bit. Wouldn't say that it's Tarantino's best movie, but it felt like Quentin Tarantino's version of an Agatha Christie novel. It had to me that very much of a Murder on the Orient Express type, where it could be a play at a college or a high school. That would be really weird because of everything, but it could definitely just have this like play-like feel of a murder mystery, and I totally had thought that a lot while watching this movie. And it has, the way that they slowly introduce the characters, they bring them in, and then there's another conflict, and they bring this in, and then it's like the whole time, and it had that feeling, and maybe that's what he was going for, but it had definitely that feel to it to me as well, and maybe I enjoyed that part of it. It's a little off of what Quentin normally does. And I don't think it's perfect in any way, shape, or form when it comes to, even if you were to look at it through that lens. I'm not saying it's a perfect murder mystery, but it definitely has that vibe. And I'm not sure if he was going for that or not. As with Tombstone, there's so much story in Tombstone that makes me, I don't know. It's one of those things, I guess, Mike, you saw it 8 times. It's one of those things where when you watch it, it's so giddy to me. This rustic, awesome Western that just makes you enjoy Westerns again. And it just has this flow to it. I don't really like the ending of Tombstone, and I don't know why. There's something not right about it. And so I'm curious to know your take on it, Kyle, that maybe, because I think it's with some of the acting and the way that it followed up, but I don't want to bring that up here in the writing, or maybe it's actually the story and the way that it tries to follow up. I'm not sure. So I'll be curious to know if we think of things differently when it comes to the ending, because there's something that is off. And even when I watched it this time, I was like, there's just something, I don't know if it just feels like it's not done, or I don't know, but both very well. I don't know. It's hard to say terrible things about either one of these, especially when it comes to writing. They're well thought out, and very fun, enjoyable to watch. So
it's funny you mentioned that about the play, because there was a point in like 2016 after the movie came out that Tarantino announced that he was going to make it into a stage play.
It feels like a play. It's paced like a play and staged like a play.
It really does.
Yeah, especially since it's kind of got that Alfred Hitchcock kind of feel where it all happens in one location, like rope or lifeboat or whatever. Like it all happens in that one cabin overall. Obviously not entirely, but mostly.
Like a lot of the murder mysteries do.
Yeah.
I mean, think of like a lot of the Agatha Christie's and like even the Falcon and stuff. They're almost one room plays, right?
Yeah. I think one of the things about the end of Tombstone that bothered me, it was this montage with Robert Mitchum kind of casually speaking over it, and he's dancing with what's her name, Josephine. He's dancing with Josephine or whatever, and then they just kind of casually say, "Oh, his other woman not wife or whatever, she just kind of died of a opium overdose, and they just kind of glance over that, and I'm like, that part made me a little uneasy. It's like that just seems kind of like a little too casual to just dismiss her death. So,
Yeah, he very much was of the opinion that the opium addiction was her issue, despite it being his wife.
Right.
Which is really kind of despicable.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of it. Is just it made the character feel like you're supposed to be rooting for, but it's hard to. I don't know. Something's not right. Something doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and I guess we can't expect these characters to be perfect, but yeah, there was something. It's like. And I don't know what really happened. I don't know if that's what really happened. If he was basically hanging out with Josephine while his wife was back home ODing on opium. I don't know, but it seemed a little odd. That was just one minor thing about Tombstone that I thought that was kind of strange at the end.
I am kind of okay with the. I'm kind of okay with it. It really seemed like their relationship was on the outs when the movie started. That there wasn't a whole lot of love left there. So, I mean, the alternative was they stay together until they're 70 and hate each other and just stare at each other across the room, and that's no fun either.
And that's a fair point. It just, like I said, I don't know if it was necessarily how it ended, or even the character. I don't know. There's something just off about the ending, and maybe it'll come out while we talk about certain things. But there's something off. And I don't know what it is.
All right. Anything to add?
Yes, I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room on the script for Hateful Eight and the excessive use of the N-word. I think it's tough, but it's funny because it's not funny, but it's interesting because it's harsh and it rattles you when you're watching it, and it's real. But it really goes along with the violence and the misogyny and everything else in the film that, nothing in this movie is toned down. So why should that be toned down? So I don't know what you guys thought were on that.
And
it's Tarantino movies.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not ignorant, but I don't know. It felt excessive.
It did. And I think if it's a representation of a character or that moment in time, like if it's a particularly racist character, that's a word you would expect them to use. Or if it's, a certain time period, maybe you expect more liberal usage of that word. But at times, I also want it to be meaningful. If you're gonna go there, it needs to be meaningful in some way. And it felt like it lost. It lost its energy, its meaningfulness after so many repetitions.
Yeah.
It just was. It suddenly just was there just for shock value because we know that we're not supposed to be saying it. And for me, that's what it felt like. I think it's used appropriately isn't the right word, I suppose, but like in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It punctuates certain things, and the characters who use it makes sense. This just felt, excessive to me personally. So I'm always surprised at who can get away with it.
It's always him. He's the dude.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it.
He's the dude.
I would say that Django is another one that used it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Django makes more sense to me though, due to its
location,
and its content.
And its content. And I think
this all stems from the period of time, of it being much more commonplace then.
Correct.
It is
but
also it's awful. It is also very difficult to pull a quote from the Hateful Eight without getting that in there.
It is.
Yeah.
And that maybe tells you something.
And here, so by comparison, so I saw To Kill a Mockingbird on stage, and I mean it's it's all throughout the book, and it's all throughout the stage play, and it stings every time you hear it. And like Gabe said, like in Hateful Eight, there comes a point where it's just like, it kind of loses its impact after a while, and it almost becomes like word porn. And it's like, okay, like enough, we're good.
Well, and To Kill a Mockingbird, it's supposed to sting.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's supposed to hit you in the face every time it's used.
Yeah.
And just like, Blazing Saddles, whenever they use it, it's used by the idiots. You never see the smarter characters using that term. It's always the backwood, redneck, idiot morons that are using that term. Mm-hmm. And I
think Mel Brooks might be the only other person who can get away with using it that way.
Well, Mel Brooks and Richard Pryor, right? But
I mean, Richard Pryor is a different.
No, but I mean, Richard Pryor helped write that script.
Oh, okay.
But I agree with you. It is difficult to watch this movie, and I don't know why, because I can sit through Blazing Saddles. That word bothers me, but I understand how it's being used. Mm-hmm. And in the Hateful Eight, there are certain people that use that word that I'm like, I'm not saying they get a free pass, but it's understandable because that character comes from that background, right? And one thing we need to remember, this, as much as we don't like it now in 2022, that was just like us using, a regular term that we use now was used back then, right? Like that was a common term to say.
Well, yeah. I mean, and even if you think about more modern times, the homophobic slur F word was in common usage up until like the last 10 or 15 years. It was not uncommon at all to hear people say that.
Yeah. Well, and I would argue that there are still places even now that continually will use that word.
Oh, for sure.
I guess where I'm going is in a movie, I think there's a way to portray that character has a mentality that would use that word because of the time period, but get your point across by them doing it once or twice and then not having to do it like the entire freaking movie.
Well, you had a Confederate general and a Confederate sympathizer,
right?
Which I think gives it more, more credence. That would definitely want to be how they would respond to them because they know they're intentionally being inflammatory.
Yes.
They want that reaction, right? They want that reaction.
And it does sort of help build things, for Major Warren as he's just constantly getting it hit from multiple people, multiple people in the haberdashery, and just eventually he's just like, I'm just going to kill some of these guys because this is just, he's been pushed around too much. So anyway, I just wanted to hit on that.
And maybe that's his motivation. And maybe that's the focus there, as opposed to, that word is that character's motivation,
right,
to get there.
Maybe. But there's only two people that live at the end. And, if Mannix is one of the ones that lives, he used it almost more than anybody else in a derogatory way. So
that's true. Fair enough.
I think you bring up a very good point because it's uncomfortable sitting through it. And that possibly could be one of the reasons why the movie bothers me. I don't know. And we could go on for like 2 hours about this.
Sorry,
it's also pretty harsh towards women.
It is. Yes.
But we know that the antagonist is a bad person. We don't know exactly what she's done, but it's very harsh, especially at the beginning towards the female character.
I mean, the movie is called The Hateful Eight. The 8 people.
This is true.
We are supposed to hate all of them.
They're all pretty awful in general.
People, so
they are full of hate. Yes, that's true. And there is 8 of them.
Just like watching 2 broke girls.
Right. There are 2 girls and they are broke.
Yep. And I hate both of them. The characters. Anyway. Gabe, Vote now.
Yeah. I think Tombstone is highly quotable and very enjoyable, so I'm going to go with Tombstone.
All right, Tom.
I'm going to go with Tombstone because at some point somebody sat down and decided that, well, bye was the best thing for him to say, and they were right.
Andrew?
I am also going to vote for Tombstone.
Kyle?
Yeah, hard because I love the story and setting of Hateful Eight, but it would have worked much better as a play. So I think from a movie script perspective, it's Tombstone.
Kevin Jarre's original script for Tombstone was significantly longer than the final film. It was intended to be an epic, detailing the lives of all the combatant parties in the story. After Jarre was fired as director, George P. Cosmatos, is that how you say that? Comatose?
You got it.
Comatose hired John Fasano to trim the script to focus primarily on the Earp family to make the already delayed shoot more manageable. Fasano received co-author credit in early promotional materials, but his name was removed from the film's credits, probably due to the Writers Guild arbitration. Instead, Fasano was given an associate producer credit. So that could be part of the problem that you have with the ending, is it was meant to be more epic in scale as far as the tale is concerned.
I just like, how many times did he need to chase down the guy from Avatar? I can't remember his name. Like, how many times is he going to have a final show?
Curly Bill? Or
No,
not Curly Bill.
Not Powers Booth.
Shoot.
Stephen Lang.
Yes.
Stephen Lang, yeah.
Yeah.
How many times does he have to have a showdown with that guy?
Right, and that was kind of disappointing at the end too, because you feel like if this wasn't based on historical events, and who knows how accurate any of those interactions were with him, but you feel like there would be a real pleasure in, these guys taking him out.
Yeah.
At the end, he was such a thorn in their sides, and he was always causing trouble, and just a despicable character that we would take some pleasure in seeing him go. But that's another thing at the end where it's just like, oh yeah, well he died in a bank robbery in 18 whatever, and it felt a little bit kind of rushed.
Was his name?
Yeah.
After the script for The Hateful Eight leaked online, writer and director Quentin Tarantino did not want to make this movie. However, they did a brief reading of the script in Los Angeles. The cast was stunned and got excited for the film. And with Samuel L. Jackson persuading him to do this movie, Tarantino accepted. All right. Let's move on.
Who would read that? Who would read that shit? Like Tarantino doesn't make that many movies. Like, I'm going to read a script on my little laptop and fucking ruin it.
Right. Well, there's people that like that.
Whatever.
What a weird.
I agree with you, but I mean,
yeah, that's a long table.
That is a long table
with a lot of set dressing.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. There's a lot of staring. I think you could probably whip it out in 90 minutes.
Let's move on to our second.
Speaking of 90 minutes,
second round, which is acting.
Hey, all right. So we have Kurt Russell versus Kurt Russell. Really, I think this category is going to come down to Val Kilmer and Powers Booth versus Tarantino's acting royalty family that he relies on so often. Michael Madsen, Tim Roth. Walton Goggins was a great addition, I think, too. We talked about him in December for Fat Man, my kid's new favorite Christmas movie. I'm just kidding. My kids are too young to watch it. Anyway, the acting is, I think, where I think Hateful Eight's going to make up some ground points-wise, because there are the movie, I think it's kind of on the border of not working, but the acting is something that helps keep you engaged in it because the acting is so good. But I mean, Val Kilmer in Tombstone. I mean, when we, 50 years from now, I'm guessing that we're going to be looking at Top Gun and Tombstone as his two movies, and Tombstone might win out as his kind of signature role that defined him. The one for me in Tombstone that makes it very difficult for me to vote for Hateful Eight is Powers Booth. Mostly because I watched this movie, 7 or 8 times, and I didn't realize that it was Powers Booth. I don't know what they did to make him look so small and skinny, and I mean, Curly Bill is not a big man, and in my mind, everything that I've always seen Powers Booth in is he's this kind of this big hulking guy, like when he was on 24, and so it was very surprising that I was like, son of a bitch, that was Curly Bill as Powers Booth. That occurred to me one time. So, yeah. So, boy, it's really tough. It kind of comes down to those. I think Kurt Russell and Sam Elliott and Bill Paxton, the three brothers, do great in Tombstone. But there is, I don't know if you can quantify acting, but it just feels like there's more acting in Hateful Eight. And they make the, almost 3 hours a little bit more tolerable.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be hard to beat Val Kilmer in this category. I mean, that really is a seminal role for him.
Maybe Hateful Eight will turn out to be his tuberculosis.
maybe we'll see. There was another performance I didn't really like, and I've always wondered why he became so famous. There's just a short part at the end of Tombstone with Charlton Heston, and I like Charlton Heston, but I don't think he's a very good actor. If you know what I mean, he's like, I think he has like some kind of screen presence, but I just don't think he's that. I personally don't think he's that great of an actor.
He peaked with 10 Commandments? Is that what you're trying to say?
He what?
He peaked with 10 Commandments, and that was it?
Yeah, maybe Ben-Hur. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, just think of his performances in like Planet of the Apes and stuff like that. I mean, it's not really... or Silent Green is people. It's people. I just don't... there's something... He's engaging, but not really a great actor. Anyway, so I felt like he kind of stood out a little bit in Tombstone. But yeah, maybe it's the kind of thing where we do kind of go Kurt Russell versus Kurt Russell on this. Which one? There's just something about Kurt Russell's persona and his history. I have a really hard time thinking of him as a evil, rotten human being. Maybe he really is. I doubt it, but maybe he is. But I always see him as being heroic. And so I had a hard time with him in Hateful Eight being so awful all the time. But, Tombstone, I felt like, well, this is a role for Kurt Russell because he's very heroic. And maybe the other thing we could talk about, I don't know if facial hair falls into the acting category or not, but there's a lot of facial hair going on in these movies, these Western movies, and maybe that'll be the deciding factor: who had the best mustache or beard or something. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have a hard time voting against Val Kilmer in this performance. He was perfect in that role.
It's funny you said that about Charlton Heston because I watched this with my son. I watched Tombstone recently with my son, and it got to that part, and I was like, "Oh, this is the part with Charlton Heston." And my son was like, "Who is that?" And I go, "Hell, he was a big actor at one time."
I know.
And right. I have no idea why he's in this all of a sudden.
And they were shifting from big plays to movies. Charlton Heston was big.
Yes.
Oh yeah. He also He's also the worst actor in the world when it comes to working out. I will never forget the movie Earthquake.
Earthquake.
When
Jesus.
one of the worst movies I've ever seen, where this Heisman Award-winning athlete cannot work a pull-down machine. Absolutely abysmal. Jeez, I'll never forget it. It's in my head forever. That movie lost me 3 minutes in. I was like, uh-oh. Anyways.
Yeah, the standards for actors were way different back then too.
I was just going to say that. I think the art has moved on in the last 70 years.
Now these people have to train for 2 years. Bob Odenkirk? I think he said he trained for 2 years to do his role in Nobody. You know, and who knows what Keanu Reeves does for those John Wick movies.
And Christian Bale too, what he does to his body.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Movies, yeah.
And he's doing it again in his new one.
Thor.
Anyway,
the new Thor movie, Christian Bale is.
He looks pretty emaciated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we're talking about acting and Charlton. I really want to know why Charlton Heston is in this movie.
Royalty, Hollywood royalty.
It gives it weight. You got a bunch of old. He
doesn't
people
fit.
in their seats.
It just doesn't fit, and that's what's weird. I don't. I mean, you have. Just look at the cast. You even just your top 4 bills of Kurt, Val, Sam Elliott, and Bill Paxton. We haven't even talked about Bill Paxton. And you have Thomas Hayden Church and Rooker.
Michael
Rooker.
God, I love him. And
Stephen Lang. The cast is incredible.
It is.
Michael Biehn.
So,
Michael
why?
Biehn, yes.
I guess I'm asking, why do you need, the tip or the hat or the bow to, have Charlton Heston in it when you have incredible acting ability right in front of you on screen doing great work, and they are telling a story and they're building characters, and these guys and some of the women, even like Dana Delaney, does a fabulous performance, and it's so well done that I don't understand why we need something like that, but maybe that's beside the point. Hateful Eight is kind of one of those kind of parallels, because you have this cast list is just stupid.
Yeah.
It's silly. You have so much talent that you were trying to squeeze on screen. And this is where I struggle with both of these movies is in a movie like this, when you are putting such strong and powerful talent, that is where you have these actors that are so good at what they do, and they are so well at developing characters, and they're so well at portraying a specific moment in a specific person for ages that will be there for permanence. And you have so many of them on the screen at the same time, and they somehow blend. And we'll get a little bit into that, because it's not just actors, it's obviously the director too, but they blend so well together and they work it out, and it makes magic. Is just, it's so hard with these two movies to say one is, because you have such great performances in both.
Yeah. I remember watching Tombstone again. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I was really surprised at the amount of people I forgot were in the movie. It's really a killer's row of actors. It's an insane cast. And then when you watch Hateful Eight, you're like, oh God, so is this one. This is really incredible. Yeah. There really are. It is like if you could fantasy draft a cast, this is who you would pick. But I do feel like at times the acting is uneven in both movies. And I remember thinking oh man, Kurt Russell gives such a good performance in Tombstone. And I think for the most part, it's pretty good, but it does not hold a candle to Val Kilmer's performance, which I think is one of the best I've seen. And it's just incredible. Everybody's good, don't get me wrong, with the exception of, I think, Stephen Lang, who is a bit out of his depth and maybe just annoying sometimes. But yeah, I mean, Powers Booth, and I mean, you have this stuff, and it's an incredible list of actors, really is. But it's just so uneven in places to me, and that's my problem at times.
Yeah, I feel like the actresses in Tombstone are not
right. They're
strong.
not nearly no. And to be fair, they're not given a lot to do other than be wives for the most part. But yeah, it's hard.
That's why I would say that Dana Delaney is probably the stick-out performance in there.
Oh yeah, she is. Like, her eyes just sparkle in that movie. So
because
it's incredible.
Else, with the rest of the Earp family, basically.
All right, look, and I wonder if it would it tilt your vote at all if Christoph Waltz had been in Hateful Eight? Because I mean, try as they might, the Tim Roth role I think really feels like it was written for Christoph. I mean,
yeah.
It does.
Even his outfit I think is the same one from Django Unchained. It's pretty close. So
and I like Tim Roth though. I enjoy Tim Roth in these movies, but I agree with you that it does feel like it was maybe intended for Christoph.
I did like how Tim changed his accent changed when he was playing the part, from from kind of the high society British to more of the Cockney Welsh accent when he's not playing the hangman character. So I thought that was a really cool choice.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of a repeat for him because like in Reservoir Dogs, he gets shot in the stomach and he's just like dying slowly and groaning and that kind of stuff. And basically the same thing happens to him in Hateful Eight too, because he gets shot and he's rolling around the floor just dying slowly and groaning. And it's like so it's kind of like a repeat performance for.
That's all he can do. You don't know.
I don't know. I like him. I don't have anything against him.
If he gets shot in the stomach in the season finale of She-Hulk, we got a problem.
Hey, you know what? Maybe he is just the best at getting shot in the stomach and rolling around and grabbing and moaning. And maybe he's just the best actor in Hollywood to do that.
Oh yeah, he's the guy you hire.
He's the top guy for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you think that Val Kilmer's role in Tombstone tops Iceman?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think there was a whole lot of acting in Top Gun for Val Kilmer. I mean,
I just know people that will say that Val Kilmer's Iceman role is one of the best roles. There's lots of arguments of why it was the best role for Val Kilmer. So I just was curious.
I want to I think Walton Goggins. I mean, I feel so happy for him after seeing him for decades, just kind of in the background and in the periphery as these character actors, a lot of TV work, and just seeing him go from Sons of Anarchy and Justified into a Tarantino film, and just he really feels like one of those actors that really paid his dues and is getting to do his getting to fill those bigger roles. So. Really happy to see him do that.
We have discussed our love of Walton Goggins. At least I know I have. So I totally agree with you.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I only said that because I knew Mike would agree with me. So I'm trying to get Mike on my side.
Okay, point for you, Tom.
Woohoo!
You and Gabe are
nice
now
haircut.
tied.
All right.
This is the show where points don't matter. I thought this is like whose line is it anyway?
That's correct. Points don't matter. Let's put it to votes matter though. So let's put it to a vote. Tom.
I'm going to go with the movie that doesn't have Charlton Heston, so Hateful Eight.
All right. Andrew?
Hateful Eight because of the hateful Charlton Heston.
All right. Kyle?
Yeah, I hate that Charlton Heston. Can't do a pull down to save his life, so gonna go with Gonna go with the Hateful Eight.
I love that you're docking him for a movie he did 20 years before.
That's always gonna hurt it. Always gonna hurt it.
Gabe.
Wow, I didn't think Charlton Heston would really come into play as far as like deciding this. I can't go against Val Kilmer in Tombstone, so I'm Tombstone all the way.
Staying true to his word.
I feel like Dana Wheeler Nicholson would make up for it for her work in Fletch, but no.
Longtime veteran Western actor Glenn Ford had originally signed on as Marshall White in Tombstone. However, poor health forced him to withdraw. The role went to Harry Carey Jr., who was originally cast as a wagon master. And Harry Carey Jr. was in a ton of Westerns. If you just click on his name in Tombstone, you will be amazed at how many actors, like acting greats, he stood next to on screen. He's a character actor who got to work with a lot of greats.
His first movie was 1921.
Oof.
Was it?
Yes. He was a baby.
That's true. Movies back then?
That wasn't a joke. But yeah, 1921 was his first credit role. So anyway, sorry, interrupting you. Go ahead.
Willem Dafoe was the original choice to play Doc Holliday, but Buena Vista refused to distribute the film if he was cast due to Dafoe's role in the controversial The Last Temptation of Christ.
Oh, God. Get over it.
The Hateful Eight cast, this is going to be pretty long, but try and follow the math. The Hateful Eight cast includes 1 Oscar winner, Quentin Tarantino, and 5 Oscar nominees, Tim Roth, Sam Jackson, Bruce Dern, and Demian Bichir, and Jennifer Jason Leigh. Of the 17 cast members, not including Tarantino himself, only 4 have not worked with Tarantino before this. Jennifer Jason Leigh, Demian Bichir, Gene Jones, and Channing Tatum. Of the 13 who have, 10 appeared in Django Unchained. The film's cast features 4 Marvel Cinematic Universe actors: Tim Roth, Walton Goggins, Kurt Russell, and, of course, Samuel L. Jackson, meaning half of the titular 8 have been in the MCU. Sorry, that was a lot of this, that, and the other, but you guys were talking about how stacked that movie was, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I have to say, after you mentioned his name, I felt like Channing Tatum is not the strongest actor out there either. He's kind of like the Charlton Heston of
You know what?
I like him, but I just don't think he's that great of an actor.
I haven't seen what's it, Lost City. Apparently, he's very funny in that.
Maybe he's better. Maybe he's better at a comedic role.
I do like him in 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street. It's pretty good.
And he was really good in Coen Brothers' Hail Caesar.
Yes,
there's
that I haven't seen.
He's very funny. In
just
Lost
Google
City.
Google the dance number from Hail Caesar. He's pretty incredible in that. So he's growing on
maybe
me.
Maybe it was just this particular role. He didn't have a very big part. He didn't do a lot.
And Tom is leaving out his favorite Channing Tatum movie, but I won't mention it.
Only because that's my nickname for you.
He's very funny in the Lost City. Just so you know, he plays that comedic character.
Yeah, maybe he's better at that kind of thing.
Oh, and he was good in Bullet Train.
Oh, I still haven't watched Bullet Train yet.
Oh, Bullet Train's so good.
Wait, he's in
not my
Bullet
recommendation
Train?
though. What?
How is he in Bullet Train?
Oh, yeah.
Being in Bullet Train.
What? Yeah, don't worry about it. It's good.
Half of Hollywood is in Bullet Train.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, let's move on to our third round.
We're only on the third?
Directing.
Sweet Jesus.
So I do believe the main director for Tombstone is George P. Cosmatos, because it is a Greek-Italian last name. and so Cosmatos would make more sense, but I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anyways, let's talk about some of the things that he's done. He is really, really, really big into Mr. the wonderful Sylvester Stallone. He did Rambo 2. He did Cobra. And then he kind of wavered off and did Leviathan, which I've seen Leviathan.
I like Leviathan.
And it's a great popcorn movie to watch. It's got some good, scary things. And Tombstone. And then out of all the other films that he's actually directed, I don't know any of them. Not to say that they're bad or anything else. I just am unfamiliar with them. And it's interesting because he had this very short stint between the middle 80s, the middle 70s to the early 90s, and then just kind of stopped. And so I found that to be kind of interesting. And I've seen Rambo and obviously Tombstone and Leviathan movies. Can't say that he's, a bad director. He has a very specific genre, evidently, to touch on, and maybe branched out a little bit with Leviathan. So there's that. I still have a big question that maybe Mike can answer. That Kevin Jarre, why was, first of all, he uncredited as only the director for the Charlton Heston scenes? Like that. Correct. That's all he did, and I think that's weird to me.
Oh, dude, the directing tree for this movie is so effed up. I mean,
I know, and I
Kurt Russell's trying to get a DGA credit for it still.
But I don't understand why they would explicitly call out the fact that Kevin Jarre was like Charlton Heston's private director in a sense.
Because if I remember correctly, they could not get Charlton Heston back if they were going to reshoot it. So they kept that scene. That was like one of the things that he shot that they kept.
Okay. It's just really weird. Like, he's uncredited. That's the only thing that people. It's just really bizarre.
Everything was. Apparently, it was pretty awful at the beginning of shooting the film originally.
Yeah.
I mean, based on what I've read and the directors, and it's just really bizarre to me. It's like hey, we speckled. It kind of feels like the Superman debacle.
Yes.
And it was like, we brought this guy in and brought this guy, and it's, I don't know.
Superman 2.
Right? Superman and Superman 2, correct. Yep. Yes. The Richard Donner debacle.
Yes.
Electric Boogaloo?
Yes.
The Donner debacle. So, anyways, just talking about, George was our main director, I guess. We can talk about how the ending was awkward and whatever, and maybe we tack that up to the multiple director craziness that's going on. But I want to point out something that I believe that Quentin Tarantino did in The Hateful Eight and does very well, and something that George, I believe, did well in the Tombstone, and that was a little bit what I touched on earlier, was bringing together such a strong and powerful, talented cast, and being able to still tell your story and make everybody work together and mesh. There are some very, very good scenes of dialogue, and, we can tie this up a little bit to cinematography, of camera motion and wonderful shots that really convey the moments throughout Tombstone. And there's good action. It's not, there's just a coup de grace, I should say, in the directing when it comes to actually building out those characters and being able to make them work together on scene or on screen together. And Quentin Tarantino in The Hateful Eight, he's really good at doing this in his movies as well, just bringing all these really big, huge actors and bringing them into this moment and being able to direct them into a cohesive story that works together, and you develop these characters and they pile on top of each other all the way up until you get your third act and your climax and your resolutions. And I would say that both of these directors have a really good talent at doing that. And if I go completely just off of Tombstone, I would say that they're pretty comparable. Quentin Tarantino has this eye for these glorious shots. I think at the beginning we talked, maybe it was halfway through, but anyways, we had mentioned that the opening scene in Hateful Eight is just glorious. And again, we have to tie that up a little bit to the cinematographer. But it's interesting that Quentin Tarantino also shot the movie on 70 millimeter. And there's a reason for that. He has this eye for telling these elaborate stories in small spaces with these massive talents and making it work. And I think there's something that holds true to that in both of these movies with both of these directors. So that's my first pitch. Go.
Okay. So I'm not really familiar
about the ending later, Kyle. So
right. I'm not really familiar with the director of Tombstone very well, and I don't know much about the whole debacle of creators there. I will say, though, that the movie is very pretty and well shot. I think there are some direction issues in the way lines are delivered, especially by Kurt Russell and maybe Bill Paxton at times, that I would have been like, okay, let's do another take of that. But the direction overall is pretty good and pretty solid. I really hate the way some of the ending shots are done. I think there's nothing less interesting or believable than men riding horses full speed across a plain shooting off camera at nothing. I don't know what that was. I think the idea is that they're chasing down and killing all the cowboys, but you have to show me that. It looks really stupid the way they did it. And it's distracting, right? And that's one thing I'll talk about is one thing really good movies, especially if they're long, is once they get you hooked into the world, they don't give you distractions that make you realize you're watching a movie. So when you go to end a movie and you're like, this is a natural, nice ending place. And then you go, nope, wait, false start. We're going to do another ending. And we're going to do another ending. Or when characters make really bad decisions or act in a way that makes you go, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Or, it breaks your immersion with the movie because now you're thinking about choices, shots, other things. You're not enjoying and being enraptured by the movie. And I think Tombstone suffers from that. But I don't know any movie that suffers from that the way Hateful Eight does. Because there are two or three, I would take my three major gripes with the Hateful Eight are not using score for everything and playing a modern song at the beginning. When they are riding the horse, they go from this luxurious outdoor shot that is just gorgeous. It stretches on for a really long time, but I could have watched it for twice as much. It was so beautiful. And the music was great. Everything was setting the tone perfectly. And then when they switch the shot, they play like licensed music with lyrics. I'm like, takes me right out of it. Okay, it takes me right out of it. Another thing is Quentin Tarantino narrating the movie. It's very reminiscent of when M. Night Shyamalan pops up in a movie. You go, hey, that's that dude. And it takes you out of your disbelief. Because now, instead of thinking about the movie, you're thinking about Quentin Tarantino. And I love Quentin Tarantino, but I think that's a bad choice, is to stop and make everybody go, oh, we're listening to the guy who made this movie. Like especially at this time where there's like a mystery starting, like it really breaks your immersion. And another thing, and I've had this problem with Quentin Tarantino for a long time, I hate the way he names some characters. It is distracting, okay? Daisy Domergue is a terrible name. It sounds like a name a kid would pick out of a hat or like their first words. The Jody Domingray gang is also really stupid. Okay, you've got to do better than this. If you read a Cormac McCarthy book, Blood Meridian, probably the best Western ever written, at no time is there a character with a stupid, silly name. It takes you directly out of the story. Because every time they say it, I just roll my eyes. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is stupid. He did it in Kill Bill, too. I hate the name Beatrix Kiddo. That's a terrible name. You don't bleep out her name forever and then not give her a cool name. Her name is awful. But yeah, I think those are the things. And like, it's like he couldn't stop himself from making these very Quentin Tarantino decisions, and I think it makes the movie weaker because of them.
Well, that's interesting because one of the things that my wife doesn't like about where Tarantino has been heading, Inglourious Basterds, some of the Samuel L. Jackson narration and kind of the flashy graphics and stuff that just like pull her out of the movie. And this doesn't really have any of that aside from the Tarantino narration. So I was kind of happy about that. I totally get what you're saying though with the I lost my train of thought. God damn it. But yeah, with like the character names, it does feel like this movie tried to build on Django Unchained. There was less blood. There was that, but everything seemed more than with Django. And watching his trajectory, Inglourious Basterds is my favorite film of his. I think it's a masterpiece, and I love it from beginning to end. But seeing Django Unchained and then this, I think I would have been a little nervous about the direction he was heading. But I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is really, really good. And I was really excited to see that and see him kind of rein in some of those tendencies that he has to kind of go over the top with stuff like graphics and narration and character names even. So for Tombstone, I think, that production was an absolute nightmare. I can't believe it's amazing to me. It's almost like Casablanca where they were just like making up the script as they went along. It is amazing to me that we are talking about Tombstone tonight because by all measures, it should not have been this good of a movie because there was a director for a month and then Kevin Jarre dropped out and he was overwhelmed. So they bring in George Cosmos, but he hit the ground running and Kurt Russell had to make up shot lists the night before and help him and hold his hand through it. And I correct what I said earlier that Kurt Russell wanted a directing credit. He has said that he does not want a directing credit on this. He just did what he could to make the movie a success. And I think a lot of that success, and the reason we're talking it tonight is because of Kurt Russell and that extra work that he did. So, Tarantino, it's, if he has just a little bit of self-control, he makes really, really great movies, but it's so easy for him to, ride off the cliff.
And maybe that's some of my aversion to the ending of Tombstone is you have sudden narration and then it feels at the very end like it was kind of a hopscotch random put together of an ending. Like we weren't really sure what we were going to do. So it's like, let's do a monologue at the end and we'll be fine.
Well, I think there's a lot to wrap up. I
agree. I think there was too. It felt maybe rushed, incomplete, not sure what to do. There's just something that makes me feel incomplete when I watch Tombstone that I can't put my finger on. I really can't. I was hoping we would flush it out.
I chalk it up to just a really rough production, and they just put it together as best as they could, and they did a pretty damn good job, if you ask me. So I won't disagree with that at all. It's just I think you're right. I think there's just some of this kind of calamity that kind of happened throughout production, and maybe that shows a little bit in parts that caused that uneasiness when watching. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's all it is, and I'm looking for a super answer, and there's not really one. Gabe, I'll shut up now.
I was just going to say that I think one of my criticisms of more recent Quentin Tarantino movies is that he creates these situations and he falls in love with them, and then he lingers on them too long because he's in love with them. He loves the situation, and sometimes they go on and on and on. And I feel like this movie doesn't necessarily have to be almost 3 hours long. There are certain things we could probably have cut out, and the movie wouldn't have suffered for it. And I know, Tom, you said that Inglourious Basterds is one of your favorite films, and it's a great film, and it's an interesting kind of revisionist look at history. But one example of this where there's a situation where I think he lingers too long is when they're in the German bar, and they're trying to figure out, are they really Germans or are they not? And that scene just goes on and on and on, and it's like, it doesn't need to be this long, and it doesn't. And I know what he's trying to do, and I know he's trying to build this tension. But I think he just falls in love with these situations, and just like he doesn't know when to like cut it. And so then that's why we get 2.5, almost 3 hour long movies, is because some of these things he's just taking too long. And I think that was also the case. It's interesting, I think the beginning of Hateful Eight, we have these beautiful shots. They're gorgeous. I mean, that scenery is just gorgeous. But then there's this shot, after all of that initial scenery, there's a shot of that cross, and then of the stagecoach coming in. And then it's got some beautiful, we'll talk about this in the next round, it's got some beautiful Ennio Morricone music over it. And I'm like, why are we here so long? Why are we looking at this cross so long? Why are we spending so much time here? Because it ends up not having any bearing or any meaning in the film, as far as I can tell.
Well, it's a movie. It's a movie about sacrifice and redemption. So, I mean, I think
sure, but does it need to be that long? I just felt like, and I do know, I read a thing that Ennio Morricone didn't want to work with Quentin Tarantino again because he felt like he went too quickly past the music. So maybe that was kind of his way to bow to Ennio Morricone and say, "Here, I'm going to let you have your scene with your music in it." But I just felt like that didn't need to be that long, and so that's kind of one of my criticisms of kind of more recent Quentin Tarantino movies is that, like me right now, he doesn't know when to stop.
Well done.
I didn't want to hurry you because you didn't get much to say too much during the directing. So if you want anything more to add, Gabe.
No, I think the directing, we talked about the problems with Tombstone. I think the directing, whoever did it, was very, very suitable. The directing is good, and it did turn out to be a great movie. So, but that's all I'd have. I wouldn't have anything else to add there.
All right, let's put it to a vote. Andrew.
I'm going to go with the Hateful Eight.
Kyle.
Oh, it's tough. It's really tough. I'm actually going to go with Tombstone.
All right. Gabe.
Yeah, it's tough for me too. I just don't feel like there was a clear director for Tombstone, so I guess I have to give Quentin this one and go with Hateful Eight.
All right. And Tom?
I think this is a situation where the directing is saved by the editor or hurt by the editor, and I'm going to give it to Tombstone because I think editing saved that movie, and I think editing could have saved Hateful Eight.
All right.
Interesting.
This is the director's category, not the editor's category.
No, we talk about editing. We talk about editing in the directing category. I have it on my post-it note.
According to writer and director Quentin Tarantino, his two primary cinematic influences on the film were The Thing and Reservoir Dogs. Even though Tarantino wrote and directed the latter film, it remained an influence on his later work. He also said that some of Ennio Morricone's compositions for the film that are unused score. Some of his compositions for the film are the unused scores for The Thing. And he also only showed the cast one film to study, and that was The Thing.
Wow.
So
with Kurt Russell in it, he's like, I know a little bit about that. So
wow.
Yeah.
Did he make Kurt Russell watch it? Because that's kind of fucked up.
That is kind of.
You have to sit here the whole time.
They're like, Jesus, man, I was in this thing.
So as Tom stated, I have this kind of long piece about the directing on Tombstone. Val Kilmer wrote in 2017 that Kurt Russell was a major influence in the directing of this film, and that he was, quote, solely responsible for Tombstone's success, no question, end quote. A month into production, Kevin Jarre was replaced as director after he became overwhelmed in the duty and fell behind schedule. George P. Comatos was brought in and hit the ground running. According to Kilmer, I was there every minute, and although Kurt's version differs slightly from mine, the one thing he's totally correct about is how hard he worked the day before. For the next day's shot list and tremendous effort he and I both put into editing, as a studio wouldn't give us any extra time to make up for the whole month we lost with the first director. I watched Kurt sacrifice his own role and energy to devote himself as a storyteller, even going so far as to draw up shot lists to help our replacement director. George Comatos, who came in with only 2 days prep. Russell admitted as much in 2006 in a 2006 interview with True West magazine, when the actor said he made it clear to studio brass he did not want his name listed as director, but he did help out behind the scenes quite a bit.
Holy crap. I hope he got a raise. Because damn. That's one of those people that's stepping above and beyond, the people you have at work that goes above and beyond.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, and just think about all his experience too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been doing this since he was a kid, so it's like maybe that's not the role he was playing on these films. Yeah. But he's seen it all. He knows how it all works. So just think about how valuable that would be to have him playing, doing those things.
All right.
That's incredible.
Let's move on to our fourth and final round overall.
I gotta say, I almost said country movies. Western movies are not necessarily my favorite movies, but I find they have a lot in common with other movies that followed them because they influence a lot of directors. And I do I'm a sucker for some great nature shots, and Hateful Eight has a ton of those. Very beautiful. Tombstone is a bit long. I don't like its ending. I think it's a bit sloppy in places, and the acting is very uneven. That being said, it's still a good and enjoyable movie. It's not perfect, but it is a good movie. I would consider it better than most movies. If you were to, have an average of what the average movie is, Tombstone is a better than average movie. Hateful Eight is not my favorite Tarantino movie, probably not even in my top 3, but it has some very cool and unique ideas that it plays with that I really like. Yes, there are problems with maybe they're only personal problems too, with names and the way some people act, and some people have problems with the language, and some people have problems with things that are not totally accurate, but it is still another good movie. You would say it's a better than average film. I think both movies, one movie obviously had a very troubled production with their director, but I think, as Gabe said earlier, Tarantino is prone to getting in his own way by, as Gabe put it, falling in love with ideas that maybe are much more interesting to him than they are to anybody else, and not knowing how to pull back from that, and probably not having anybody telling him like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this. So the film definitely suffers from that. And that's disheartening to me because I love Tarantino as a director. And to see someone sort of self-sabotage in that way is kind of depressing. But maybe he loves the way it is, and it's great to him. And then, more power to him. It's all just a matter of opinion. But both movies are worth a rewatch. They're worth a first watch and a rewatch, I would argue. Hateful Eight probably harder to rewatch because it's so damn long. But it is pretty good. And if you really like it, there is an even longer version on Netflix. They do it in like 4 or 5 parts that are 50 minutes each. So if you just can't get enough of the Hateful Eight for some reason, and you think this movie is not long enough, I got good news for you.
To some of your point, Kyle, with the magic of some of those nature scenes, I slightly mentioned Quentin shot Hateful Eight on 70 millimeter. Something like that. First of all, God bless that cinematographer picking that up and saying, yes, I will do that, because I can't imagine the extra that goes into something like that. To choose a format that allows you to get much more detail and such a glorious image of more of what the human eye can see, to be able to enjoy shots like that and those large shots and the detail and what you're getting out of that format. So that may attribute to some of those, because you're right, they're just magnificent. I don't know another way to say it. They're just magnificent shots to be able to pull that kind of stuff off. So that might have helped with that. We talk a lot about rewatchability for both of these films, for the films that we, and what we'd watch more often, or if we watch it again. And it's really, it's tough. I would watch both of these movies again. I have watched both of these movies again. I don't know if I could voluntarily be like, you know what, I haven't seen Tombstone in a really long time, so I'm going to watch that. Because it's just, I am more impressed that they made a movie with, basically Kurt Russell becoming a director, or even just, let's call him an assistant director, or an assistant producer, putting up shot lists and things like that to be able to get the movie to what it is. I think Tom said specifically, it's amazing that we're talking about this movie, that they put it together, and it may be contributed to all of those different factors. But at the same time, and maybe we're more critical. I don't know, maybe a little, but I would say that it shows a little bit more that it wasn't as clean in that sense.
I really think I think Hateful Eight's too long. It really kind of just, I think there's a really, really great movie hidden in here somewhere, and I think you could probably cut it down to 210, 215, Tombstone running length, and not remove a single line of dialogue, and just kind of help speed things up a little bit. And I don't know, I disagree with Gabe what he said about Inglourious Bastards, because I love the basement pub scene so much in Inglourious Bastards, obviously, and I feel like that tension is there, and I don't feel that tension when I'm watching Hateful Eight. And I don't know if I can explain the film language that makes it work in Inglourious Bastards, but not so much in Hateful Eight. But you still have that conflicting people trapped in a confined space. It's there's a lot of similarities between the two, but for some reason, for me, and it's opinion, it works in Hateful Eight, it works in Inglourious Bastards, but not Hateful Eight. And I think that's one reason why I'm disappointed in Hateful Eight, because I know Tarantino can do better. And had this been like his second movie, or something that came out right after Pulp Fiction, we'd be amazed and we'd love it. But we know that Quentin is capable of better, and so that's why I think it hurts a little bit by our expectations.
And that is the curse of being someone talented like Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As you're always going to be judged by the best that you've done.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think anybody went into Tombstone and was like, it was good, but it's no Rambo.
Rambo 2, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he did Rambo 2?
Rambo
Yeah.
2.
Rambo 2, Ramboer.
The original director did Rambo.
More
Or
Rambo.
Did one of the other Rambo movies.
Yeah, the original director did the
Rambo
original
2.
Rambo.
Oh,
And he
Second
did-
Blood.
Yeah, he did First Blood Rambo 2.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he did Cobra, which is like also a Rambo spinoff.
No, but I mean the original director of Tombstone, the one that left, did a Rambo. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we all understand, Mike.
I don't know if you guys. I don't know if this is going through.
Yeah, he did a Rambo movie. We get it.
The first one.
The second one, I thought. No, the first director.
I don't think we're. Is this direct? Are we still on directing?
What? No, we're on overall.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, I think one of my criticisms of Hateful Eight 2 is that I felt like at the end.
Hateful Eight 2. You've seen the sequel?
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a sequel.
Directed by the second director who did the first Rambo.
Right. Exactly. You got it. One of my criticisms of Hateful Eight is that it kind of, at the end, you want to see, what's her name again? That you didn't like, Daisy Domergue. You want to see her kind of get her comeuppance a little bit because she seems like an awful human, but it kind of devolves into like torture porn at the end. I mean, I know they're on one hand it seems like some sort of poetic justice to actually hang her, but I don't know. To show it the way they did and to show them enjoying it so much just seemed like a little bit too much for me. I don't know.
No, that's a good point.
Was it satisfying to you guys to see her go that way?
No, it did kind of feel like violent porn. And then the part, I had read a lot of stuff on it today, and it was that line between, is it misogynistic the way that the women are treated in this movie, or is it feminism? Is it she's a bad person? If you're a feminist, then she should be treated the same as her male counterparts in the movie, and she is. But at the same time, it's none of the other guys get elbowed in the mouth, and put in their place the way she is. So it's it's tricky, and it's almost where you just have to kind of set that aside so you can kind of enjoy the movie and then come back to it and kind of reevaluate after the fact, which is what we're doing. Shit.
Right.
And I think I was just going to say, I think we don't pay as much attention to that if the movie doesn't have these things that take us out of it. If you're just in the movie, enjoying the movie, maybe you don't think about that kind of stuff as much. But there's so many things, like I said, the narration, the names, some of the other things I complained about, I guess, that take you out of the movie, that then you start analyzing other parts of it. And I think that's bad. I think that's not a good thing for the movie.
Yeah.
And we talked earlier a little bit about the overall treatment of language and race and such because of time period. In essence, time period is the way the female treatment is that a symbolic of the time period as well.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's true. Yeah, that could be, you could make that argument that it's symbolic of how women would have been treated in that time period as well, and not necessarily. The interesting thing, though, is that Quentin has had kind of a record of kind of, as I mentioned before, revisionist kind of history type thing. So you might see him go in and say, okay, well, this is how women would have been treated, but let's raise her up from that a little bit and have her reaction be something that transcends how they would have been treated at that time.
You could argue the same about race then.
Absolutely, but he didn't, and so that choice was not there. And I also want to talk. Obviously, I think we should talk at least briefly about music in these movies. And I think obviously Ennio Morricone is a an icon in movie music. I honestly, if I had heard this without knowing it was him, I'm not sure I would have guessed it was him. But it was, when there was music that wasn't, like kind of like modern, folk or pop music or whatever. When there was,
score
music, it was the score was very beautiful, and I think it fit. And I also enjoyed Tombstone. I enjoyed the music in Tombstone, but I had to look because I was like, I don't think John Williams did this, and he didn't. But it had kind of a John Williams kind of like feel to me. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts or opinions on the music in these films? Because music is really important to Quentin Tarantino, I think. So I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts?
I thought it was interesting that Morricone was kind of like held back a little bit, like you said. Like you almost didn't realize that it was him, and and Tarantino has the opposite problem with himself, that he just can't hold himself back. He can rein in everybody else, but he can't rein in his own tendencies.
True.
So
right.
Was it the song from the Stagecoach? Was that Jack White at the beginning?
It really sounded like Jack White.
It did.
Yeah, I'll have to look up and see what it is. But I like that one. I thought that one worked. For a second, it kind of pulled me out, but I don't know. I really like that one. I'll have to find that one and buy it.
Well, and I think in some of his previous movies, Quentin used music appropriately. Like Reservoir Dogs and the whole radio station thing in the background. And the, some of those songs, there was a juxtaposition of the lyrics with what was happening, or some sort of they kind of went together with what we were seeing. Like like I think of like, what was it, Stuck in the Middle with You, or whatever, when he's cutting off the police officer's ear and like getting ready to burn him and that kind of thing. That's the kind of thing where it's like there's this juxtaposition between the lyrics and the tone of the music and what you're actually seeing that makes you uncomfortable. It's like, this is a happy-go-lucky, upbeat song, and he's torturing somebody. And I think it worked there. But I've always kind of hated like period pieces, period movies that use modern songs. So I don't know. I feel like that, for me, that pulls me out of the film if they use a modern period piece.
That was definitely the issue I had with it, was when they started playing movies or songs that are not, in line with the score that's going on. Just felt very strange. I was like, oh, God, why? Why are you doing this? It totally took me right out of it already. And that's not what I want. I don't want to do that.
Who knew that they would make a movie named after a great frozen pizza?
And with that, we're going to put it to a vote.
That ends it. That ends the round.
Kyle.
Oh, brother, this is difficult for me because I just voted for Best Director for the other movie, so now I feel like a bit... I'm just wasting time. I think The Hateful Eight is still a better movie. I just have problems with it.
Okay. Gabe?
I think I'm going to have to go, for me, with rewatchability and go with Tombstone.
All right. Tom?
I'm going to go with Tombstone. And it was White Stripes, not Jack White, but close enough.
Still close
and,
enough.
Yeah. And I already have the song, too. If I just open my own music and fucking listen to it once in a while.
Andrew?
It had White in the name. You're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
Andrew?
The Hateful Eight. I'm going to regret it. Hateful Eight.
All right. Just real quick, you guys spoke about cinematographers. Robert Richardson was cinematographer on The Hateful Eight. He is known for the Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, Inglourious Bastards, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Aviator, and he has a very storied career. So check him out if you want to see more films. And then Tombstone was William A. Fraker, who is known for War Games, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1941, and one of my favorite movies of all time, Bullet. He shot the car chase scene in it. Yeah. He also did Space Camp, and Kyle, this one's for you, Murphy's Romance.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yep.
Space Camp?
He got to go to space.
Space Camp was awesome.
I love Space Camp.
I found that on DVD somewhere.
Did
I
you?
made my kids watch it.
Oh,
yes.
Oh.
I have never seen
Oh, he was also director of photography for Street Fighter.
Uh-oh.
Was it Joaquin Phoenix and Tate Donovan are in that?
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Not Street Fighter. Joaquin
I was
Phoenix
going
is
to
not
say,
Street Fighter.
Street Fighter? Much better movie.
All right, so I have a lot of overall trivia, so let's get to it. The line quoted by Doc at the end of the fight at the OK Corral is horse historically true and was reported in the Tombstone papers reporting the fight. When confronted by one of the cowboys at point blank range, the cowboy reportedly said, "I got you now, Doc, you son of a bitch." To which Doc gleefully reported, "You're a daisy if you do." As extraordinary as the scene is in which Wyatt kills Curly Bill in the creek, it is true. During the shootout in the creek, when Wyatt kills Curly Bill, the next person he shoots is Johnny Barnes, the cowboy who yells, "Jesus Christ." As in real life, Wyatt shoots Barnes in his stomach. However, Barnes was not killed on sight. He managed to escape, and he died in a farmhouse. However, before dying, he told the story of how Wyatt really did walk into a hail of Curly Bill's gunfire unscathed, walk right up to Bill and shot him point blank with both barrels of a double-barreled shotgun. Where's Wyatt? He's over by the creek walking on water. I love that line. While some wonder about a black man in the Union Army rising to the rank of major, the fact is that the highest ranking black soldier in the U.S. Army during the Civil War was Surgeon Alexander Thomas Augusta. He retired from the Army in 1866 with the brevet rank of lieutenant colonel, which is one step above a major. So,
That's
sorry,
interesting.
a little bit of history stuff for the films. Panavision made a 2,000-foot film magazine, double the standard size for the Hateful Eight, to film Ultra Panavision 70 millimeter to accommodate Quentin Tarantino's penchant for long takes. The Weinstein Company spent $8 to $10 million to find, procure, rebuild, and install 70 millimeter analog film projectors and to train the 200 projectionists needed to operate them in the 96 U.S. theaters that showed the roadshow version of this film. It was $80,000 plus per location.
Jesus. Did anybody see it in 70 millimeter?
I did not.
I believe it was showing here, was it not? I thought I saw it in 70.
Maybe I did. I don't know. I'd have to ask Mark because he's the one I went with. The film used Panavision anamorphic lenses with an aspect ratio of 276 to 1, an ultra-wide ratio that was used on a few movies in the 1950s and 1960s, such as Raintree County, Ben-Hur, Mutiny on the Bounty, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, The Greatest Story Ever Told, and Khartoum?
Khartoum?
Khartoum, thank you.
Khartoum.
Khartoum, thank you.
Yeah, it's a city in Africa.
Yes. The name on the stagecoach line, Butterfield Overland Stage, is the same as in 310 to Yuma. Kurt Russell's John Wayne impersonation was quite deliberate. At one point, his character utters the line, "That'll be the day," which was the famous catchphrase of Wayne's character in The Searchers. Mexican Bob was also a character name in True Grit. He is a member of the Ned Pepper Gang. The "You gotta hang mean bastards" quote is a reference to Sonny Chiba's The Street Fighter, which if you've never seen The Street Fighter, you just need to watch it for the ripping off of some poor bastard's gonads. And then, I don't know, I thought that this was widely known, but maybe not. The guitar that Daisy Domerick played while singing Jim Jones at Botany Bay was a highly valued antique from the 1870s on loan from the Martin Guitar Museum and worth some $40,000.
I love the story.
At the end of the song, the script called for John the Hangman Ruth, Kurt Russell, to grab the guitar and smash it to pieces. 6 replicas were built for the shoot and were supposed to be substituted for the real instrument for the smashing shot. But due to a miscommunication, Kurt Russell was not informed and destroyed the original guitar before anyone could stop him. Jennifer Jason Leigh's shocked reaction to this is genuine and can be seen in the released film. The Martin Guitar Museum subsequently announced they would never loan guitars to film shoots again.
Yeah. Go back and watch. If you go back and watch that scene, she is horrified.
She is.
She looks off camera. Yeah. She looks off camera at someone and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, she breaks.
Yep.
Oh my God.
And I was actually watching for it this second viewing. So
yeah,
it's an interesting tidbit.
Yep.
It's just losing a guitar that valuable.
Just think of how bad he felt. Kurt Russell.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he felt like shit after he realized what he did.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to recommendations for this month while I attempt to do math. We'll start with you, Gabe.
Okay. Well, I know that you prefer that we do recommendations that are related to the movies we're seeing, that we're talking about, and I have one, but I do want to recommend a movie from a couple of local filmmakers that I think everybody should see. It's really well done. It's Kinnick, the documentary. So our friends Scott Sipker and his buddies put together a documentary about Niall Kinnick, and it's really, really well done. And I'm very happy for them, and I'm very proud of them. So if you get a chance to see Kinnick, the documentary, I would highly recommend it. Even if you're not an Iowa football fan, it's really a great film. And if you can't catch it in a theater somewhere, it may not have wide distribution. I believe you can see it on Vimeo.
All right. Thanks, Gabe. Tom?
So yeah, Hateful Eight's really long. But sometimes you can make a Western that is 160 minutes and it works. And so my recommendation is the 2007 Western, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. It's directed by Andrew Dominic, who directed the new Marilyn Monroe documentary that's on Netflix next week.
Docudrama.
Docudrama, is that what we're calling it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's The Assassination of Jesse James is an absolute gorgeous film, and it's one of those films where the shots are so beautiful that they are actually what compels you to keep watching, because you don't know what Roger Deakins, the cinematographer who we've mentioned many times on this podcast, what he's able to come up with next. And it's Brad Pitt, Casey Affleck, and it's the story of the end of the life of Jesse James in his last days. Very highly recommended. It is probably, it's got to be one or two of the top most beautiful films out there. And interesting, we have this theory that Slash Film listens to our podcast and then does news stories the next day. This is actually from today. They did a story of they said the best movie of the 21st century turned 15 today, and they're talking about this movie. So we agree. Assassination of Jesse James is fantastic.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Andrew?
Okay. Mine is also going to be a kind of a Western. I find it to be a semi-Western, but it is the finale in one of my favorite trilogies growing up, and that is actually Back to the Future Part 3. And again, I wouldn't know, I wouldn't say that it's directly a straight Western that a lot of people are, but it does happen in the Old West, and it's a fun movie to watch. And like I said, it wraps up the huge trilogy of the Back to the Future. So I hope everybody has seen it, but if you haven't, I highly recommend it, but start with one if you haven't watched it.
Thank you, Andrew. Kyle?
So I have, I had two recommendations, but we don't really do that anymore. I'll say one for the next time. So I just saw this movie tonight in the theater, and I enjoyed it. It's probably not everybody's cup of tea, but I was a fan. It stars Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan. It is called See How They Run, and it is based on the Agatha Christie play The Mousetrap, or it takes a lot of inspiration and is sort of a meta commentary on that play, which is one of the main reasons we want to see this, because that was the first play I saw on London's West End when I went on my honeymoon, and it was really cool. So we really wanted to check it out, and we're not disappointed. It's not a movie that's for everybody, and it feels very different than most movies being made in 2022. But it's light and funny and a whodunit. So if you're into those kind of movies, check it out.
All right.
I want to see
Thank
it
you,
so
Kyle.
bad.
I figured Tom would want to see that as well. I mean, that kind of looks like a Tom movie, and I want to see it as well, and I'm not using that as a derogatory term.
I saw the trailer, and I was like, oh!
Yeah, it's definitely on my list. My wife and I were in the play, See How They Run in high school. I think it was different, but it was a murder mystery as well. So,
all right.
look,
sorry, go on.
So I want to see it.
Oh, okay.
That's all I got.
That's all you got. Well, mine is I'm guessing that someone has had to have recommended this in the past years, especially when we do Westerns. But this movie blew my mind when I first saw it back in high school, because I was used to John Wayne Westerns and some Clint Eastwood Westerns. This movie clocks in also at 2 hours, 45 minutes. It stars Henry Fonda as the actual bad guy, Charles Bronson, Claudia Cardinale, Jason Robards is in it, and the great character actor of Jack Elam. And it's directed by Sergio Leone. Once Upon a Time in the West. Like, you want to talk about lingering shots? This movie has it, but it has such beautiful shots in it, and the compositions are great. So check out Once Upon a Time in the West, if you haven't already. Gabe, before I poke the monkey, do you still have the top 5 Tombstone quotes that you shouldn't say in a men's locker room?
I do. Like I said before, I was looking up the exact wording of that "skin that smoke wagon," which I thought was really cool when he said it in the movie. But anyway, so yes, the top 5 quotes you shouldn't recite in a men's locker room from Tombstone. So number 5, they have listed, "Come get some, boy." Number 4, "I have 2 guns, one for each of you."
Hey,
all right.
Number 3, "Nonsense. I have to kind of say it like he said it. Nonsense. I have not yet begun to defile myself." Number 2, "I stand corrected, friend. You're an oak."
Nice.
And then number 1, "You skin that smoke wagon and we'll see what happens. I'm getting tired of all your gas. Now jerk that pistol and go to work."
hey,
I said throw down, boy.
Oh my god. Oh, that is
great.
fantastic.
I thought that was pretty funny. I just happened to cross that when I was like looking up the exact wording of that quote, and I'm like, oh, yeah, those are funny.
And I want to add the train station line, which, by the way, is just beautifully shot, that whole scene. But tell him I'm coming and hell's coming with me. All right, let's poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Tombstone!
So close.
It was very close.
Yeah.
Don't get closer.
Right. I think these are both good movies. They're both worth watching.
They are.
They're not perfect.
And I will say this: I enjoyed Hateful Eight more on my second viewing than I did in the theater. I don't know what was wrong. I still don't know why I didn't enjoy it as much as I did, and I think maybe we hit a few of those things tonight. But yeah, it is one of my least favorite Tarantino films, which feels weird to say because it's a Western done by Tarantino. But yeah.
One thing I didn't mention is that I thought it was also interesting that it was a Western that occurred mostly in the snow.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting, too. I mean, there are definitely prominent Westerns that feature snow, including Tombstone. There's a little bit of snow, if I remember right. Or do I not remember right? I feel like I did. I feel like there was a little bit of... Yeah, I feel like there was a little bit of snow in that. And then, like, the Searchers, there's a pretty... Because, and obviously that had a very specific purpose to show the passage of time. But, yeah, you don't see that a lot. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
It was in Charlton Heston's contract. He needed snow.
Snow needs to appear in this. I also need a pull-down machine. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. If you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell your enemies. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. In October, we head for the bottom of an ocean trench and the top of a butte. As Close Encounters of the Third Kind takes on the abyss, we're definitely going to get the bends. For Kyle, Gabe, Andrew, Tom, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
Gunsmoke!
Yeah! This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
Hey, it is Ryan Seacrest. There's something so thrilling about playing Chumba Casino. Maybe it's the simple reminder that with a little luck, anything is possible. ChumbaCasino.com has hundreds of social casino-style games to choose from with new game releases each week. Play for free anytime, anywhere for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.